Hello, my name is Rachel Herrera and I lead customer success here at Kubit. In this demo, I'll show you how to set up a brand new schema within Kubit and begin analyzing in as little as 5 minutes. In this example, we're going to set up a schema using a Snowflake data warehouse. In Kubit, a schema is simply a data set used to build analytics on. An organization can have several different schemas depending on the different kinds of data that you would want to model and analyze within Kubit. In this case, I've already put my username and password, set my query timeout, as well as some other heuristics. I can simply test my connection and everything looks good. Continuing in my workflow, I can now browse the different tables available to me to add to my data model. In this case, I'm going to be using our store sample dataset, and Kubit forces you to begin with a fact table. We operate within a star schema, so this is going to be the very first table you're going to want to add. I'll select my store fact table and hit confirm. Kubit will pull back all of the different fields available to you as well as their corresponding data types. In this example, I'm just going to map them all and just double check and make sure that everything looks good. I can also add derived columns if I'd like. So these are going to be formulaic fields you can use writing raw SQL or mapping via RUI. I can preview the table values to make sure that this table is actually what I want to look at. And as a final most important step, in order to make Kubit work, I have to do a bit of light mapping. First, I have to tell Kubit which column should I look at to consider the event name. This will populate all of the dropdowns and event selections within the tool. And in this case, I'm going to click event name. I also need to select my timestamp and my event date. If you don't have a date column but do have a timestamp column, you can simply create a derived column that transforms your timestamp into a date and then map to that one. Also, Kubit supports this idea of subjects, so essentially what are the things to be counted. I'm going to go ahead and add a subject here as we need to have at least one. And in this case, client ID will be one subject. Actually, let's go ahead and fix that and make that user ID. I can add other subjects. We suggest session, but in this case, perhaps client is actually going to be better. I can name my subject and select the corresponding ID. We also let you set what we call an install date. So if in the corresponding tables, either fact or dimension, you have a date that signifies when the user first appeared on your platform or installed your service, you can set that here and do a pretty sophisticated analytics based on that. Okay, this is looking good. I'm going to return to my table view and I'm going to add a corresponding dimension table. Navigate here, and my store user dimension is what I want to add next. As you can see, I do have the option to add additional fact tables if I'd like, and Kubit will treat that as a union. In this case, we're going to add a dimension table. Also, we're going to map all the columns again, and now I have a slightly different configuration here that I'm going to set up. In this case, I need to tell Kubit how to join my fact to my dimension table. I see my subjects are available here, but if I need to join on a different field, I can. In this case, I'm going to join user ID to the corresponding user ID column in my dimension table. There's no other join conditions required here, but let's say you had custom SQL, you could write that, or even a temporal join where you had some sort of slowly changing dimension that you only want to pull the last row of a table on. In this case, it's pretty simple. I can also add more subjects here if they exist in the dimension column and not the fact table. Great. I have my two tables modeled, my fact and dimension, my joins configured, and my different columns mapped. Now I can move on to the fields area where I get to see sort of the semantic layer that's created within Kubit. This is how we know all of the different fields that are being mapped and exposed, what data types or tables they come from, and how we want to visualize them within our platform. Do we want to allow users to be able to filter by this value or break down by it? As you can see, we do some of our own guessing here to understand which fields will be best compatible with a breakdown and a filter. In most cases, fields like timestamps or numerical are not recommended as breakdowns as they can hold a ton of information. This looks good to me. My last step here is I can set up my optimization. I can view my final model here, and it looks perfect. My fact table in the center joined to my dimension table. Once I'm ready, I can hit this confirm button, and my schema will be deployed. My schema is ready and deployed. Let's start building some reports. If I move over to my reporting section of Kubit, I now am able to say, for example, count the number of events of users performing the login event. This drop-down list here was populated by me mapping the event name column to the event object in Kubit. I can now add filters by our different fields that we've mapped as well. Let's say, for example, I only want to see an app equal to iOS. Execute my query, and now I get my results without having to remodel or retool on the data. It's as simple as that to get set up in Kubit. Let us know if you have any questions or would like to see a demo of your own data.